I had always decided, being a gynecologist in my head, that whenever I get pregnant, I want to run. Because I have seen a lot of athletes, not many Indian athletes, but a lot of international athletes doing it, and I was pretty sure that you can do it, and there's a lot of science behind it on how to do it. Thankfully, when I got pregnant, I was at my peak fitness levels because I was in training for a race. So that is the number one rule of training in pregnancy, that you can train only if you were training before. Somehow finished it. The last 10 were really, really, really hard to get your mind and your body to get in sync and do it, because your legs will say, I want to stop, but the mind is like, go, go, go. Mind says, no, I think we'll take a rest, but legs are fine. It was just like a constant mental game in the last 10 kilometers. And the end is so electrifying because you enter into the main stadium in Durban. The entire stadium is full of people cheering for you, and you have to run 200 meters in that stadium to the finish line. So it is just like goosebump moment. Polycystic ovarian syndrome and obesity are one of the leading factors for infertility, and both of them are highly curable by diet and exercise. In fact, for PCOS, they say that a 5% weight loss will make you ovulate and get pregnant naturally. So they won't even require any treatment, and that is why before I got into exercise, I used to just tell them go lose weight and come. But now I have started giving an exercise prescription.
I am Vaiki Vinky, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episode. Today's guest, Dr. Erika Patel, is a gynecologist who specializes in fertility treatment. She is also a runner and a triathlete. She recently completed Comrades Marathon, a 90-kilometer ultra marathon event, which is one of the toughest and the oldest races in the world. As a gynecologist and fertility specialist, she says she always prescribes exercise to all her patients before medication. Her personal journey is very inspiring as well. Having found out that she was pregnant just 2 months before her what was supposed to be her first triathlon event, she focused on staying fit through the pregnancy through just running. She went from walking and running in the 100 meters before her house while taking care of her kid who was born at the peak of the first wave of the pandemic. She went on to successfully finish one of the hardest races in the running world in just 2 years. This has been a fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoy that. With that, let us get into my conversation with Dr. Erika. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast, Erika. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Let us start by talking about what is work for you.
Well, I'm one of those people who loves absolutely loves my job, and because there's some sort of happiness in seeing when people see a positive pregnancy test and when they have a newborn in there. So that happiness is something that I really love.
Awesome. So, next, where what I want to talk about is, what was your relationship with sports as a kid growing up?
So I have always been into some or the other sports since I was a child. In my school, I was playing multiple sports: long jump, athletics, kabaddi, even volleyball for some time. But mainly, I think after a point, I totally branched into badminton and went into some serious training for badminton. And till the time I was in school up to 12th, I I played for Gujarat State. After
Oh,
that, I
state
shifted
level.
to yes. And after that, I
Nice.
shifted to Bombay for my MBBS, and I think that was the end of my sports journey.
Yeah, it is very understandable because MBBS itself is very demanding course,
Yes.
right? So I guess your focus was completely on that, and couldn't do any sports. So when did you pick up, sports again after that break?
After almost 10 years, 9 to 10 years is when I picked it up again. And that the thing that I picked up again was the running. I did my MBBS in Bombay. I did my Gynac in Baroda. I did go to the gym here and there sometimes, but not much of time being a gynecology resident also. After I got married and came to Chennai, I came to Chennai in 2014. And about in a year or so, I started running. Not running, actually, run walk sort of approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was the motivation behind picking it up again?
Weight loss, honestly, it was weight loss. I had put on a lot of weight, and being an athlete all my life, I have seen the fitter version of myself. So I think it was and not more so about weight loss, being overweight look wise, but I think I was more concerned about the fitness. Like, I would climb a flight of stairs and I would be huffing and puffing, so that is what made me feel more bad. It was not too much about weight in the mirror.
Right. Yeah. How we feel, and how we feel doing any activity. Like you said, flight of stairs. If we are huffing and puffing, that is not a great sign, right?
Yeah.
So that acted as your motivation, I guess. So but then when you mentioned it was a bit of weight also was a bit of a concern, but uh, how much heavier were you, and how much did you end up losing once you started your fitness journey again?
So I lost about 15 kilos in a year, in exactly a year, actually, about 14 to 15 kgs in a year.
Wow,
But at
that is
that
a
point
massive
of
reduction.
Yes, but at that point of time, actually, I was not doing too much of running. I started strength work, and running used to be that how alternate days you do cardio and alternate days strength. So for a very long time, I was in fact doing kickboxing with my trainer. And
Huh.
so running was only like a half an hour cardio that used to happen on the other days.
Okay, okay. And w- when we talk about weight loss journey, we talk about exercise being only a small component of it, right? But also the diet and everything else plays a major role. So what was that part of it, and what helped you in that weight loss journey?
So, to be honest, when at that point of time, I had very little knowledge about all of this. So, yes, I would accept that I went on that low carb, high protein sort of a diet. But I think over time, I did understand more, read more about nutrition, and I figured out that none of these diets work, and the only thing that actually absolutely works is calorie restriction. So I did change somewhere midway from these high protein low carb sort of a thing to just a calorie restriction in diet.
So, can you expand a little bit on the calorie restriction part, so that the audience can understand what exactly you did in terms of
Yeah.
uh, when we talk about calorie restriction, we mean that we need X number of calories to get by. The body needs X number of calories to get by in a day. Uh, uh, but we supply a little bit less than the calories that it needs, right? So that it can use the whatever is there excess in the body, and that's lead to the weight loss, right?
Yes. Yes. So initial days I was doing it like very meticulously. If you see, there are a lot of formulas and equations available which you can put in your weight and height, and it will calculate the calories, and you put in your physical activity also, because that's where you burn calories, and it will give you a number. And there are so many apps available where you can put in your food, but it became so taxing for me because I'm so busy. Half the times I'll forget, and then calculating, oh, two rotis is this much calories and one vegetable is this much. It became too much for me to handle. And that's when I joined the Daily Nine program. They also have an app, which just simplified it for me in terms of portions, that my every meal should have, not every meal, but in a day I should have three portions of protein, three portions of veggies, and two portions of carbs. And then of course, no junk, very little oil, sleep. So when I say nine, daily nine, they have these nine things in which sleep also was one of the very, very, that you have to calculate it, that none of the diets will work if you're not sleeping for good amount of
Hmm.
time.
Hmm. So, daily nine, the nine things are three portions of carbs, three portions of protein, and uh, two
Uh,
portions of veggies,
no, three
or
portions.
is it
Three portions of veggies, three portions of protein, two portions of carbs.
carbs, and
Sleep
one
for six
portion is the
hours.
sleep?
Yes,
Okay,
and no junk and less oil and
okay,
physical
okay.
activity.
And physical activity.
Yes.
And physical
So
activity was taken.
these portions I say were for me, for my weight.
Mm-hmm,
So they do
mm-hmm.
help you. The portions change according to your BMI, but these were the ones that were my things. So I tried to, this seemed a very simplified way of doing it. And I felt, until date, I feel it is a more sustainable way to do it rather than sitting and counting calories of everything that you eat.
Right. Yeah, it does sound very manageable when you kind of look at it, instead of inputting every little thing in an app, which can become a source of stress in itself.
Yes, yes.
Right. Okay. So, is this Daily Nine an organization in Chennai, or do
Yes.
they have online presence and stuff like that? If
So yes,
anyone,
it's run by the Quad. The Quad is a strength and workout place that I go to, and this
okay,
is their nutrition platform. And anybody can go to the Daily Nine website and register, and they send you a way to download their app, and you just have to, and they will calculate your portions for you, and they will send you all the options. It's actually a very, very interesting app because they send you like lots of recipes, and they send you a lot of other things on how to calculate your portions and things like that. But yes, so
okay,
anybody can go and register for it online.
okay, that is great. Maybe some of the audience can use that service if if they are looking for help in that area.
Yes.
Coming to after that weight loss journey, right, with nutrition and physical exercise, what kind of, how did your running journey take off, right? Because you mentioned that you weren't really focusing on running that much at that time, but
Mhm.
when did you get into running and more seriously, and taking part in events and stuff like that?
So I think a couple of months after I started doing this run walk programs, I joined a running group by Thai rappers, which is a part of Chennai Runners. Chennai Runners is an organization of runners across Chennai, and they have about 16 different chapters in different areas. So I happened to join one of those chapters, and that's where I met like a lot of runners who told me, gave me a lot of information. In fact, till then I didn't even know that there are races and 5Ks and 10Ks and things like that. So what race to register for, how to train, what are interval runs and what are tempo runs and what are long runs, a lot of things, because there are senior runners or more experienced runners, I would say, who would guide the newcomers like me to do it. So, and then I think 2016 and or something, I did my first 10K 10K race.
Okay.
And I think after that, it was just a sort of addiction. You do a 10K, you want to do a 21, you want to do a faster 10K, you want to do a faster 21. And 2018, I think 2 years after I started running, I did my first full marathon at Berlin.
Wow. So that is one of the world majors, right? The Berlin Marathon.
Yes.
What was your training leading up to it, and how did that go?
Honestly, I had no intentions of doing a full marathon. Some of my friends were applying for the lottery, as people might know, for world majors. You can get in entry through lottery system, and I was like, nobody gets it. Nobody ever gets through the lottery, so it's okay. We'll just still apply. And suddenly, to my surprise, I get through the lottery. Now I was like, oh God, and now I have to do the race. Because I had done only about two half marathons till then. So zero confidence. But I started training towards it. Somewhere midway in the training, I had an injury, really bad injury. And so at the end of the training cycle, it was more like finishing the race rather than doing it fast or getting a good time. And thankfully, I finished it in, I think, 5 hours and 38 or 39 minutes. With it,
Right.
well, because there was a cutoff of 6 hours, and I was like, I've traveled all the way here. I better go back with a medal.
Right. So you mentioned during the training you got injured. What
Yes.
was the injury, and how did you manage it so that you could make it to the start line?
So I think, one of those people who ignored the initial niggle. And I mean, I think you'll understand when you tell a runner or a cyclist to not run or not cycle. It's like the most difficult thing for us to do. So I had a little bit of ITB issue, but I kept ignoring it. I kept running till it became so severe that I had a stress fracture of my hip joint, bilateral, both the sides, not even one side, both the sides.
Wow.
And and then I reached a point where I had to completely stop running. That's when I went to the Ramachandra Sports Center. I was doing my masters in infertility at that time in the same university. And there was a really good biokinetist, Sandy Lee, who was a South African. Unfortunately, he's no more, but he really helped me do go through the rehab. And they have a very good team of doctors and physios and things like that, who together work for rehabilitation. So my rehab was mostly sitting on the floor and strengthening. Basically, no weight bearing. So
No
lots of,
load.
yeah, no load. So, and they tried to help me maintain my aerobic fitness by cycling, by swimming. There used to be a lot of aqua jogging and things like that for a good 6 weeks before I went back on the road to run and
Okay.
actually get it to the finish line.
Oh, yeah. So, but that you got a very good help in managing the injury, and you were able to make it to the start line. But how was the experience of the race itself? Your first marathon, and that too a world major like Berlin Marathon, an iconic race.
Yes. I think it was, first of all, I think it was a lot of excitement. And I very distinctly remember, I think at the 12K mark, so they give water in plastic glasses and people just throw it, right? I went flying on that plastic glass flat on the ground, and I was like, God, this race is over for me. Somehow,
Wow.
because probably it was so early in the race, I was not too tired or I didn't injure myself so much. but finished it. But I think after 35, 36, it was just like a really big mental game. I had some of my friends who were traveling with me. She was running with me on the footpath to just like push me to do it. And I think once you see the finish line, I mean, I crossed the finish line and I cried. I mean, all my pictures from the finish line are so bad because I'm crying. But that was a very emotional moment for me because of the journey. No, apart from the race, the whole journey that led to the race.
Yeah, so you were injured, you had to
Yeah.
undergo a lot of rehab to even make it to the start line, and then go through all that, from struggling from 35K onwards and hitting the wall, and pulling through and making it to the finish line. And obviously you would be, all those tears would be the tears of joy and of accomplishing something so something so satisfying, I would think, right? Amazing, amazing.
Yes,
So that must be a kind of memory for a lifetime, right?
absolutely.
So from then on, did you do any more marathons or stuff like that?
So honestly, I mean, this is what my team who had worked on me for rehab had told me. After this, you are working on getting back normal. So you promise us we'll let you go, but after coming back, you're not going to run. You're going to build up that strength, fix the injury, and only then we go back on the road again. Because running a 42 in itself would aggravate a lot of issues. So I came back, and for good 3 to 4 months, I did not run. I cycled. That's when I started cycling. And then I was like,
Nice.
oh, now we know running, now we know swimming, now we know cycling, now let's train for a triathlon. So then that's exactly when they announced the Goa Half Ironman in 2019, early 2019. And
Yeah,
I,
Goa 70.3.
yes, yes. So I said, that's the race. This has come for me. Now we're doing a triathlon. I started training for the tri. June, July, yeah, peak training. October, end of October or something is the race, and September I find out I'm pregnant. So that was
Ah.
the end of my triathlon journey there itself. So I did not end up doing one
Okay, okay. So, but motherhood is itself a lot of
triathlon.
much more than a triathlon, much
Absolutely.
more than a full distance Ironman. I would think over 9 months, right?
Yeah.
So, how was that period of pregnancy? What were you doing any physical activity? To keep yourself fit during that phase? How did that go?
Yes, absolutely. So I had always decided, being a gynecologist in my head, that whenever I get pregnant, I want to run. Because I have seen a lot of athletes, not many Indian athletes, but a lot of international athletes doing it. And I was pretty sure that you can do it, and there's a lot of science behind it on how to do it. Um, Thankfully, when I got pregnant, I was at my peak fitness levels because I was in training for a race. So that is the number one rule of training in pregnancy, that you can train only if you were training before. You
Okay,
cannot start running freshly. You can do it only if you had been doing it to the period that led to the pregnancy. So then I contacted one coach again from South Africa, coach Lindsay Perry, who who trains pregnant athletes. Because
oh,
even though I was a gynecologist, I wanted somebody who knows the running part of it. I can manage
right.
the gynecological part of it, but I really wanted to do it in a very scientific way because I wanted to be very sure I'm doing the right thing. So I started training with him since my second month itself.
Hmm.
Definitely, I mean, it was initially quite a bit of a frustrating journey because you've seen yourself running so fast and suddenly you're like half your speed. Because running in pregnancy is all about heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about distance, it's not about the speed, it's not about anything. It's only and only heart rate. Number one rule, you have to stop if the heart rate is going up. So automatically there were a lot of walk breaks, there was a lot of reduction in distance, there was it was all throughout, it was a run walk all throughout.
Okay.
And
So
so
was when you mention heart rate, sorry to interrupt. When you mention heart rate, you need to keep in control. Is there a kind of number or ceiling that you have to keep in mind?
So I think it really depends on the person's resting heart rate itself. For me, it
Mm-hmm.
was 150, 155. But there's a lot of
Right.
calculation that goes behind it, because in pregnancy, your resting heart rate goes up by 15 beats, 15 to 20 beats.
Oh,
Without
okay.
so because your heart is pumping faster, because it needs to send more blood to your body as well as to the baby. So the heart rate in general in pregnancy without training itself is a bit on a higher side. So that's a little bit of a calculation that you have to do, but more or less 150, 160.
Okay.
But interestingly, even I did not know this, but because, like I said, my coach was has done this with many, and he has studied this on how to train pregnant athletes. So my entire training changed based on trimester also. Like in my first trimester, it was very slow runs. In the second trimester, in general, it's considered to be the safe trimester of pregnancy, and you have a lot more energy and everything. I actually did a 10K race in my seventh month, and
Nice.
I could do intervals. I could do all of that. The moment I entered my last 3 months, last 2.5 months, again the type of runs and the training completely changed, because now you're heavier and now you are more tired, and so it was a mix of different types of training.
Oh, very, very interesting. Uh, but in general, right? Yeah, especially or Indians, uh, once Indian girls, once they become pregnant, everyone around them are scaring them about not doing any physical activity, not not getting up fast, or this and that. There's so much information that
Yes.
right or wrong kind of goes into them, and they become very sedentary in general, right?
Yes.
So do you think uh, doing physical activity during that period is important, or how do you advise them?
So, so I completely agree to you that that is exactly what happens. But the reason why I wanted to do it is, when I tell my patients to do it, I wanted to be an example. I mean, I cannot tell somebody to do it when I myself am not doing it, right? So first of all, it's very important that your own gynec is on board, because I also had another gynec who was taking
Hmm.
care of me. I can't deliver my own baby. So, so she was on board. I was doing my checks. I was, you have to be complication free. There shouldn't be. There are certain types of pregnancy where, yes, being sedentary is necessary, and
Hmm.
definitely I won't recommend any sort of physical activity. But whereas
Hmm.
there is a set of pregnancies which are healthy and you can do it, and if you've been into it before, you can definitely continue it. So along
Right.
with this, I did a lot of pelvic floor strengthening,
Hmm.
and a whole different set of strengthening routine to make sure that I don't have any pregnancy related injuries. That is number one. And secondly, the reason why I wanted to recommend physical activity is because it has been proven it highly reduces the chances of gestational diabetes, hypertension in pregnancy, excessive
Hmm.
weight gain in pregnancy, and
Right.
it highly increases the chances of having a normal delivery. It's proven that the more sedentary you are, the more chances of cesarean sections. So quite a few advantages of being active, and plus, I for me I felt the advantages not during the pregnancy, but the way I was back on my feet after delivery,
Hmm.
because because of being active throughout, I was just back to my normal life in a week or two after my delivery. So that I felt was one of the biggest advantages of being active during pregnancy.
Amazing. We see uh, women in villages and stuff who are active throughout their the, throughout the period, maybe like until the day of delivery, and
Yeah.
then they are on their feet again, maybe within a week or something like that, which is what it sounds like in your case. So
Mm,
obviously the staying active, if you are used to being active and having a gynec on board with their
yes,
inputs, obviously is very important, right? uh,
yes,
Amazing. So let us talk about that period post pregnancy, right?
yes.
Coming back to how long did it take for you to kind of um, get to your previous levels of fitness?
So, so interestingly, if I get to the timeline of this, seventh month of my pregnancy, after I did that race, that was February 2020, and March 2020 was when the pandemic hit us, and we
Right.
went into complete lockdown. So I did not have any place to run except for that 100-meter pathway that I have, which leads to my house. So I used to do up and down because that was too scary. First of all, pandemic. On top of that, you're pregnant. So there was definitely no going out. So I used to walk in that 100-meter pathway. I did that for about 2 months. I delivered in peak pandemic in June 2020.
Wow.
So even when I had to come back to running, it was again back to only that 100-meter because now I have a newborn. I can't afford to get infected. I'm feeding my child. So it was quite a bit of a journey, but definitely I was back walking after a week. And like I said, talked about pelvic health, right? So my pelvic health therapist, there are different therapists who really help pregnant women work um, on their pelvic muscles. So she's the one who I started with first to build back the core and the pelvic muscle strengthening, and then slowly I went to walking and then running, and by I think by 12 weeks I was fully back to running.
Great, great. And oh my god, uh, the delivery and being pregnant and delivering the child in peak pandemic time, I can only imagine how much of an experience that must have been, right?
I- yeah, but
Those were really really scary times.
so that's why absolutely I feel that I think running really kept me sane because of something that I love, and plus how they say that exercise is a stress reliever, because this was next level stress to get. And that time, that was that first wave where we didn't know how scared we should be of COVID and what will happen and what will happen to the baby and things like that. So we didn't have a vaccine that time. It was,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
quite a bit of.
No, no.
I feel that getting out and doing that little bit something was keeping me sane.
Right. That is really something. So if you said it took about 12 weeks for you to get back into fitness, right? So and we were still 2020, there were not a lot of events or anything like that because of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
how did your fitness routine in 2020 and 2021 look like?
So
Did
in
you
I
do any
continued
events also?
No, so I continued with the same coach because he
Hmm.
helped me through how to build it back in postpartum also. And very, very interestingly, I mean, when we talk about MAF runs, right? So technically, I did math for 9 months. So when
Huh.
I
For
think back,
for 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 listeners, can you expand a little bit about MAF runs and what it involves?
so MAF runs are the low heart rate runs. Full marathon is from where the MAF word comes. So when you do these really low, so you have to run below your threshold heart rate and sorry aerobic heart rate,
Hmm.
and so people do it for 3 months so that when you get back to your training, even when you're running fast, your heart rate is a little bit in control. To put it in very simple words, and
Correct.
it just help
S-
you get a little bit faster also, and it builds more of your aerobic strength.
Mm-hmm. So they MAF runs basically Maffetone, right? The guy who came up
Yeah.
with this.
Yes.
He basically says you have to do a workout only in a very uh, low heart rate zones or aerobic, keep it very aerobic. So it could be like 140, 150 for most people.
Yeah.
And you have to, and does he also kind of suggest doing fat only kind of runs, or how is that? Does the
Not
diet also, is diet also part of MAF runs? I am not
I'm
sure.
not too sure. Even I'm not too
Hmm.
sure. But I think if
But
you go
definitely the
up,
heart rate.
yeah, you can go on the website and there's a calculate. He tells you how to calculate 180 minus your age or something like that to find out at what heart rate you should be running to get advantage of
Right,
this math runs.
right. Hmm.
So technically, people do it for 3 months, and it is honestly very frustrating because you have to run really, 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 really slow. And I was always a very impatient type of a runner, and I could never do this. Like, no, no, I can't run so slow. No, it's not possible, and I never could do this. But for pregnancy, I had no choice but to keep my heart rate low. So this is something which was very, very interesting. That when I got back postpartum 3 months, I was just faster. My resting heart rate from before to now had dropped by 10 to 12 beats. I was so much faster. So that's probably when I realized that my God, it's like I just realized I did 9 months of low heart rate running, and now I'm having like 10K PBs going from 59 to 52. My half marathon 225. Now I'm running a 2 hour half within 6 months. This is just by 6 months of after 6 months of pregnancy. But these were
Hmm.
all like one of those virtual races or self time trials. None of the races were happening at that time.
Right.
um, I think and then what happened during this phase, the coach that I'm talking about, Coach Lindsay Perry, he is, which I found out much later, that he's the official coach for the Comrades Marathon.
Ah.
And that's how the thing of Comrades Marathon came, that shall we do it? You think I can do it? One very joking conversation. Yeah, why not? We'll do it next year. So that's when
Aha.
slowly, slowly. Now, if you do now, till now, so I don't know if you've been following the timeline. Till now, I've done only that one full marathon. That was Berlin, which was I-39. And now here I am talking about Comrades Marathon, and you have to qualify for it. For qualifying, you have to do a full marathon. So that's when I started getting into training for a full marathon with a pure intention of making it as my qualifying race.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely nice.
20 this is 2021, and then 2022 Delhi, February Delhi marathon uh, is what I was training for, and the COVID third wave, whatever, second or third, I don't even remember now. So that the race got cancelled. So I have a love hate relationship with these lockdowns. But so, and that race got cancelled, and
Okay.
I need a race to qualify. And suddenly I've heard about Jaipur Marathon, March 2022 this year.
Hmm.
And I just went and I did that. 4:28, a PB by 1 hour from my
Wow.
place. So
5:29 to 4:28.
5:39 to, yeah, 4:28, more than an hour
Wow.
of a
1 hour,
peak.
11 minutes.
Yes, yes. So that
Uh,
was a big, big, big achievement for me, and that was my qualifying for Comrades Marathon.
Awesome. So, for those who don't know about Comrade Marathon, can you give a little bit of background, saying what is the distance and where does it happen, stuff?
Yes. So the Comrades Marathon is the oldest marathon of the world. It's now, this year would be 101 years old. 1921 is when the first Comrades Marathon had happened. It's run between the cities of Durban and Pietermaritzburg in South Africa. And every year, one year it's from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, and the next year it's the other way from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. It's an up and down run. However, it's a very, very hilly terrain. It's one of the toughest runs that at least I have done, with a distance of 89.8 kilometers um,
Wow.
throughout. And what makes it the hardest one is that you have to finish it in 12 hours. So
Yeah.
at 12 hours, the race shuts down. There's a bus that comes and picks you up. You can't even cross the finish line. You're not. There's a human volunteer chain before the finish line, which does not let you go through the finish mat at 12 hours.
Hmm.
And about 25,000 people run every year. This year, probably there was a little number was a little less, 15,000 or something because of COVID. But every year, it's close to 20 to 25,000 people.
Amazing, amazing. Such an iconic event, right? In the run, it is one of those sacred races for the running community,
Yes.
especially those who are into marathon and beyond, right? So this is really one of the most iconic events around the world. So how was your training leading up to it, and how did you make it to the start line? How did the training go leading up to it go?
So, lots of challenges, definitely. First of all, it's a very hilly terrain. At least 10 to 12 hills you have to climb in that 90K. It's about an elevation gain of 1400 meters. So,
Wow.
throughout the race. So, being in Chennai, the only elevation that I have is flyovers, which is a 250-meter. So, I mean, running up and down the flyovers is the only hill training that you can do here. So, I think I did two of my longest run. One was about 44 kilometers and the other one 55 kilometers. I traveled to Yerkat with my running group. They came there to support me. They ran certain distances with me and everything. We traveled to Yerkad and I did those two big training runs in the hills, because that's definitely something that you need. And flyovers are not at all useful for a race like this. So
Yeah.
terrain was probably one of my biggest challenge in training. And plus, this little fellow who was actually quite supportive, but my training would really totally depend on, if he doesn't sleep in the night, I don't sleep in the night, and then I skip my run, and then I have work the whole day, so not that I can do it during the day. So I have done a lot of runs at very, very odd times. I've run at 8 p.m. I've actually, my last long run in Chennai was at 12 in the afternoon. It is just, sometimes I come home for lunch and do it. Was very, very, like, very haphazard. But I was doing about 4 days, 4 days a
Hmm.
week running, and two
Okay.
days strengthening. Definitely strengthening is very important when you're doing a distance like this.
Amazing, right? So you have a 2-year old now, right?
Yes.
And as a gynec and fertility doctor, you are always working and busy. So between raising a toddler and working as a doctor, and training for something like comrades, I think it is really something that you are able to, juggle all these balls and uh, land them the way you did is really amazing.
Yeah.
Like you said, those hill it is not a very straightforward path, right? You have an event in mind, and here is the training plan, and you tick them off, and you get to the start line and the finish line. It doesn't happen that way. Like you said, if the kid doesn't sleep, you
Yeah.
all your plans can go to the dustbin. A-
Yeah.
and then you also have to find the correct terrain, and you have to kind of schedule things around going somewhere and training for it and stuff like that.
Yes.
I,
Thankfully,
I
my
think
coach
that's
was very supportive because I guess being a father of two kids, even he knows. Because like my training would change according to teething schedules of the child also. So if a tooth is coming, there is no sleep. This week is gone. It would be it. It was that tweaked to that level. Now that I think about it, it just makes me laugh. But yeah.
amazing, amazing. So you made it to the start line with all these with juggling around. How was the race itself? How did the race itself go?
Oh, so I mean, like I said, right, it's a 12 hours. So when you do, they have starting chorals. So at a 4:28, you're still quite behind in starting. And the Comrades Marathon is probably the only race which is not mat to mat. It is gun to mat. So when the race starts, your time starts, whether you've reached the start line or not. So
Ah,
I'm so behind, and we can see the race has started, and you can far away see some heads nodding, and you're still stationary because it is so crowded. It took me 6.5 minutes after the race started to reach the start line.
wow.
So I have already lost. So now I have to finish the race in what say 11, 11:54 or something. Not even 12 hours. I've already lost 6 minutes there. So that puts you in a very anxious state. Although my coach had warned me about this, I was still and he had given me I had written down, okay, how many kilometers I need to be where at what kilometer. It
Mhm.
was 8 degrees at start. I was wearing 3 layers, gloves, cap, whatnot. Because again, being in Chennai, you're definitely not used to a cold weather or
Mhm.
training in cold. I think I threw off one layer at 20 and threw off the other at 40 because it became really warm. And then at 65, it starts raining. And it became severely cold. And by now, I have thrown away everything and I am shivering and walking. And by 65, your mind also is like, what is happening? You don't know what's happening. And then I just told myself, Erika, the only way is to run. That's the only way you'll get warm. You get your act together and start running. And somehow finished it. The last 10 were really, really, really hard to get your mind and your body to get in sync and do it. Because your legs will say, I want to stop, but the mind is like, go, go, go. Mind says, no, I think we'll take a rest, but legs are fine. It was just like a constant mental game in the last 10 kilometers. And the end is so electrifying because you enter into the main stadium in Durban. The entire stadium is full of people cheering for you, and you have to run 200 meters in that stadium to the finish line. So it is just like goosebump moment, and I can see it's still 15,
Wow.
20 minutes left for the 12-hour mark, and finished it in 11:45 on the clock, and probably 11:38 is what my mat time was, but with a good
Wow.
buffer to do it. Yes. Oh,
Amazing, amazing.
I had my coach there waiting for me to finish. I think I didn't cry when I crossed, but when I saw him, I was like, "My God!" From where I came, I just broke down, and he was just very very proud of me, and just a goosebump.
Really,
Will not sink.
yeah. No, no, it is really something, right? The from being pregnant and during the pandemic, delivering, and then kind of continuing to train in that 100 meters here and there, and then kind of maintaining, and then trying to juggle all these with a toddler, and one in getting to the finish line of one of the biggest races in the running community is really something. And no wonder it is like goosebumps moment, because
Yes.
I can feel the goosebumps just hearing to the story.
Yes. And it's
Amazing.
nice. It just felt very nice because I had like a lot of support from everybody,
Mm.
from my family, from my friends, and from my running group throughout the journey. So very, very thankful to each one of them. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it does. It takes a village, although we
and
pursue our
and my baby nanny who kept my baby. I think she was one of the most important people. I'm laughing and saying this, but yes, she like really. I mean, when I'm going out running, she and my family, I stay in a joint family, so
right.
they would all
No,
take care of my child.
no, it is very important to have that kind of support system as well.
Yes,
It
yes,
doesn't. We cannot do anything on our own
yes,
in these kind of things, right? So
yes.
excellent. So what next, Dr. Erika? You have done a couple of marathons, and you have done probably one of the biggest races in running. So what is next on your
So a
menu?
lot of people ask me this, and I used to tell them that I don't know because my vision was only till here. I never thought after Comrades what. And then I have this call with my coach after I rested for like 2 weeks, and I said, "Coach, so what do we do next?" And he's like, "I'm going to ask you one question. Are we doing this again, or are we moving on to something else?" And I this race has just been so amazing. The support throughout the race, it felt like a festival. There are people who have come, they have cooked food from their own houses, and they're standing there throughout 90 kilometers. It was just that race has made such an impact in my life that I think I want to do it again the next year.
Awesome, awesome,
So, but
really
yeah,
good.
I really don't know if I will, but
Oh, but that is something that something to look forward to and probably
yes,
train, right?
yes,
Excellent.
yes,
That doesn't get any bigger than that.
yes, absolutely.
Great. It's been a fantastic conversation, Dr. Erika. I really enjoyed the
Yes.
conversation. To conclude the session, what are some of the tips that you would give working athletes to do well at work and sport?
I think first of all, anybody who's working should or has a stressful job or anything. I think being into doing some sort of exercise, for me it really helps me. I mean, I'm more active, I'm more, the decisions I take are much better if I've done a workout in the morning. So I think doing that, there is a way to juggle it, and I think everyone will eventually find that path. And I think consistency is one of the most important things that I learned. It was not about how fast I ran or how slow I ran. It was more about I figured out a way to at least do it 4 to 5 times a week,
Hmm.
any sort of exercise. So I
Yeah,
think consistency is the key, and if you want, you really can do it. And if you want, you can really find 100 excuses. So it,
yeah.
it all comes down to how badly you want that.
Absolutely. Great. And I kind of wanted to talk about something that I missed. So, because you are a gynec and a fertility specialist, do you think, being active and workouts and stuff like that help during help with the fertility aspect of it, and in general the gynec health?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, polycystic ovarian syndrome and obesity are one of the leading factors for infertility, and both of them are highly curable by diet and exercise. In fact, for PCOS, they say that a 5% weight loss will make you ovulate and get pregnant naturally. So they won't even require any treatment, and that is why before I got into exercise, I used to just tell them go lose weight and come, but now I have started giving an exercise prescription. How, when you go to a doctor, you take tablets and they tell you how to eat it. So I'm very specific. Do 45 minutes of brisk walking 5 times a day. So it should be a part of your prescription, is what
Hmm.
I believe in now, and it really helps a lot of women.
Right. And uh, you mentioned PCOS. What is that?
The polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's a very
Okay.
common thing, ovarian disease that happens in mainly reproductive age women, but nowadays we're seeing it in a lot of adolescent girls also. So I
Hmm.
recommend that, even imbibing exercise from as young as you are also helps a lot in your fertility as well as other medical disorders also.
Right, right. Yeah. So that is very important. It will be very helpful for girls and women in general. And it's a great thing that you mentioned about prescribing the exercise as well, because we tend to follow whatever the doctor writes down on the prescription and gives.
Yeah.
Take this tablet at this time, take this tablet at this time. But if you
Yeah.
just say go do exercise, be active, people don't typically tend to follow, right, unless they say okay, do this and this and stuff like that. So,
Mm.
and you are in a really good position to uh, actually prescribe, because you know what it is like, both from a physical fitness point of view and the medical perspective as well. So that is excellent. So does this prescription can it be one thing for every that works for everyone, or does it
No,
depend
no,
on
it
person to
definitely
person?
depends on person to person and your weight and your BMI, and also what kind of a lifestyle they have. I mean, I also see many women who have so much of housework during the day. I definitely am not going to ask them to go to the gym and spend 2 hours or something. So you really have to make it work according to their lifestyle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is definitely important. Even when you chart a training plan, we chart it according to the person, where they are, what they can manage, and what is their life circumstances and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense. This has
All
been really fantastic, Dr. Erika. Thank you for taking the time and sharing
right.
your experience and expertise with the Working Athlete podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here.